So I've been meaning to do this for a while. Um, it's good, people. My name is Ty. And I kind of just don't even know where to start. Here I sit in my new little humble abode. It's really the basement of my baby mama's aunt. My baby mama's aunt's house, and it's her basement, refurbished. It is fully furnished, and you know what I mean. It's pretty dope. But yeah, this is my current day to day, and it's not a bad thing, but it is just crazy how how I've ended up here after everything I've been through. So this is me just really putting myself out there. I don't know if anybody will watch, anybody will listen. Would be cool if they do. If they don't, it is what it is. But I feel like I've been meaning to get my voice out there and just like at least speak my truth and all that good stuff, So I'm 32 years old, and I feel like I've experienced a lot of life, So yeah, like I said, where do I start? Like, my dad was a firefighter. My mom at that time, when I was young, worked for the city, so, very well off, and would definitely describe myself as being like part of upper middle class, especially back in that day, like making that much money, had a nice house, all that stuff. At the age of about 8, I want to say my parents got a divorce, which was, it happens. I don't think I have any like trauma from that because, my parents I never witnessed them fight. I never experienced a chaotic or tumultuous like household. There was no abuse. There was no, it was just one of those things where like, I don't know what happened between them. I don't think I ever will. I don't even want to ask, but like they split, and they made it clear that I was not the issue. They talked about it. They were honest about it. So, life happens. But around 10 years old is when I feel like, so I mean, things have happened to me before, obviously. Things have happened when I was young, like you can see the scars around my eyes and stuff. Like I actually got those from like falling off of, it's not monkey bars, but the bar, everybody hangs from the bar. It used to put your legs up, flip your legs over, and hang upside down. Yeah, like I somehow my legs slipped off and I went face first into some rocks. Like, you know what I mean? Like I've had like shit happen to me, but like as far as like life altering trauma, like the first thing I can remember that happened was when I was 10 years old. And so like I said, my dad was a firefighter. He was on a call on Halloween 2003. And so he was the fire captain at the time. So the driver, whoever was driving the fire truck, hit a curb on a turn or something. I'm not even entirely sure, but yeah, it caused the fire truck to flip, land on its side, and my dad unfortunately was in there without a seatbelt, which actually, yeah, like messed him up really bad. Ended up being paralyzed from the neck down. And from that point on, he literally lived the rest of his life paralyzed from the neck down, like no function in his arms, anything he wanted to get done, he needed to obviously have assistance, need help. So growing up, once that happened, it went from being like, oh, my life's good, nearly perfect aside from the divorce and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? I'm going back and forth between my mom and dad's house, and I got 2 birthdays, 2 Christmas, you know what I mean? So like I said, divorces are bad, but it wasn't, in my situation, it wasn't the worst. And like I said, I totally understood. They made it clear it was not my fault. I had nothing to do with it. And they just did a lot of reassuring and letting me know, there was not much that could be done, or not much that I could have done to change, anything. But, so from that point on, yeah, it's funny. So when it happened, it's crazy because I finished out the school year and stuff like that. And I literally remember one of my teachers telling me how surprised she was, because at the time I was like a, AB honor roll kid. And she was like, oh, I'm so surprised, that you kept up and your grades have, you know what I mean? And at the time, I didn't think much of that comment, but it's crazy how even 20 years later, I remember that. And it's like, I was kind of like a weird thing to tell a kid, but at the same time, it's like, even if it was honest, but why are you telling me this? I'm 10, 11 years old. It was just so weird. And she's like, oh, I'm just so surprised. You're keeping up with your grades and stuff like that. But, to be honest, I want to say that was probably the last year. Because, yeah, after that, it got pretty real, So, from an early age, my parents always considered themselves Christians. We weren't huge churchgoers, but, we believe in God and everything like that. But, yeah, so from an early age, I feel like I had to grow up pretty fast, and, yeah, so from a really early age, 10, 11 years old, I just questioned everything, spirituality, question God, why would God let something like this happen to someone who is saving lives? You know what I mean? My dad's a firefighter. He goes out there to protect other people and to help other people and all this. How could God let that shit happen? So from an early age, this is at 10, 11, I'm already having these thoughts and just questioning everything around me and what is the meaning of life. And of course, as I got older, it progressively got worse to the point where when I was in high school, I would, I never told my parents this, but, I'd consider myself a atheist, was like, there's no way there can be something out there. And yeah, I struggled with that identity until very recently. I can't even lie. So I wouldn't say I was atheist past high school. I always felt like there was something out there, a higher being, you know, like there's something, but I could not put my finger on it, you know, and I just always like struggled with that, like with just period, just struggle with spirituality and and yeah, and just I just looked at the world from a very dark lens, you know, like so yeah, from to just continue on forward, I guess. So going into middle school, high school, like I said, struggled with spirituality. I but I literally turned into an alcoholic, which is crazy. It's like, how are you even getting alcohol at these ages? But in high school, I would, you know, my parents had alcohol all the time. So it was easy to go in the freezer, get a water bottle, pour out the water, pour in some vodka, and, you know, there it is, you know, so. And then even with my dad's situation too, like, he was never a huge drinker, you know, he was the type of guy that would like have a beer here and there. His favorite was Heineken. And yeah, like even then he had like bottles of stuff. So, you know, like I said, yeah, it was just easy to be like, you know, and kind of sneak off with it. But yeah, all throughout high school, like I said, struggled with spirituality, struggled with just finding any sort of footing. I'm sorry, y'all, I got like peanut butter and jelly too. I'm about to be munching on a little bit. Struggle with spirituality and good versus evil. Became an alcoholic. Do you guys remember Dare? I was a Dare kid, you know, growing up. I'm never gonna do drugs. I'm never. Man, high school hit, and thank God I've always been scared of needles. I've always been like a very cautious kid, you know what I mean? Like, I think a lot before I move and put shit into action, right? So I never fucked with the hardcore shit. I never did heroin, meth, crack, you know, just any of the hardcore drugs. But yeah, weed entered my life and yeah, definitely became a stoner. I remember the first time I smoked weed was my junior year of high school, and let me tell you, that was the craziest experience. I still remember who I smoked with. I don't know if he would want me putting his name out there, but dog, it was like 5 of us in the back of a gold. It was 5 of us, and I was sitting in the back of this gold like Toyota, you know what I mean? It was like a gold car. In the middle seat, he pulls out this stuff called Purple Death. Purple Death, bro. And When I tell you, like, I hit the bong and immediately just like busted out laughing, like, and I remember getting dropped off back at the school because, of course, these were school buddies. So, like, after school, we all hit the bong, and then they dropped me back off at the school, and I lived down the street from the school, so I was able to walk home and shit. So they dropped me back off at the school. I remember everything was just moving like this. The trees, everything was just like wavy like this, like, and yeah, it was trippy. The very first time I ever smoked. So and I remember getting home, and I literally got home. I passed out at like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. My mom woke me up for dinner and everything, and I was just like so far gone that she woke me up and I literally just passed back out, like, and slept throughout the night. Like, by far the craziest weed experience I've ever had. But it was, yeah. So that was a turning point for me, where it was just like I said, I was one of those dare kids that was like never even considered doing drugs, and then that just like kind of opened my mind, you know, a little bit more. But yeah, so continued on that path, alcoholic, smoking weed here and there, turned into full-fledged weed smoker, like everyday smoker, once I got out of high school. You know, when I graduated at 17. It's not like I don't know if I think my parents just put me into school early. But yeah, so I graduated or it was because of my birthday or something like that. But yeah, I graduated at 17. So like, it wasn't until I was 18, 19 where I became like a full-fledged everyday, like, I gotta get high. I gotta, you know. And it was cool. Life was okay, aside from my dad's situation, you know what I mean? Like I said, he's living in a wheelchair, so it's going from my mom's house back to his house and on the weekends and stuff like that. But when I was 18, my mom kind of like, you know, I think it was for the better, but at the time, of course, I was pissed. But she was like, "Oh, you gotta move in with your dad," you know, like, and, you know, kind of pushed me, kind of kicked me out, you know what I mean? Like one, I don't even recall the exact timeline, but I'll just give it months, because I don't want to say she was that ruthless and gave me like weeks or days or nothing. But like, she was like, 1 month, she was like, "You got to call your dad and tell him you're moving in," and yada, yada, yada. And then, which for whatever reason, I was just like nervous to do. Like, I didn't want to do it because I was like, I have no clue. I have no clue what made me like nervous, because I'm sure my dad would have been happy, you know? Like, I'm sure he'd have been happy, like, oh, his son is moving in, now I can help him out more and stuff like that, him living, you know. But for whatever reason, I did not. And I just showed up at his door one day after my mom kicked me out, like officially. I just showed up at his door one day at like 10 at night. And I was just like, I have nowhere to go. I have nowhere to go. And then I kind of just like moved in from there. It was like such an awkward, you know, transition. But it was awkward because definitely my fault, you know, because like I said, I don't know why I had so much hesitation to like want to move in. And at the time, you know what I mean, I'm living all free and I just graduated, so I'm like out every day. I'm not coming home. You know what I mean? I'm an adult. I'm legally an adult, so like my mom can't really tell me much, you know what I mean? So like, And I think that's what drove her to, say, go live there, because she probably saw, like, he's not doing shit over here, he's not doing, because at that time, I obviously didn't take life very seriously. The only thing on my mind was graduating high school. There was not a single thought about going to college, pursuing a degree, doing this, doing that. I mean, we did talk about it a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, but I wanted to go to film school. Film school in LA was my dream. And because of my dad's situation, and obviously because of the cost of the film school and shit, it was kind of like off the table, So it kind of turned into, oh, we'll just go to community college and do your prereqs, do the basics so you could say you did something. And yeah, so like I said, moved in with my dad, ended up going to college, but once again, I'm not taking life seriously. I'm going to class when I feel like it. Other days, I'm ditching and going to a friend's house and we're just getting stoned and not doing much, Had my little side hustles, so I was always in retail. So, well, my first job was as a busser. Did that for 3 months until I realized that you had to count tips as part of your paycheck. And that shit blew my mind. Like, these tips aren't extra money. Like, you get extra money from tips, and you're telling me that the company takes that as part of your paycheck? Like, how does that make sense? So we're not getting any extra money. Like, this shit is... So I quit after 3-4 months, and I was like, yeah, this is dumb. Like, this is so retarded. I mean, I guess there's a loophole around it. A lot of people don't count all of their tips, and, there's like little workarounds, so you do get some extra. But at the time, I'm young, I'm naive. Like I said, 18 is my first job. I had no clue. So, I'm like, hell no, I don't want to work here. And ended up getting a job at Armani Exchange at the outlet mall. And, yeah, that started my journey into retail. Like I said, I've pretty much been in retail my entire life, so. But, yeah, so on top of doing the retail, I was, selling weed on the side. And I was kind of an idiot, though, too, because I was selling weed, but I was selling it to barely break even, come away with like 50 extra bucks, but I was mainly selling so I could smoke for free, Like, I could sell half a zip and smoke the other half, and I got paid $50 for it, basically, Like, so I was pretty much getting free weed, plus a $50 tip. And then on top of working my retail jobs. So life wasn't too bad at the time, of course, because I'm not paying a lot of bills. My dad helped me out, bought me a car, And then at the time, I'm not paying rent. So, life is decent, Nothing amazing, but I mean, not terrible. So going into my 20s is when life got crazy. And yeah. That's when life got a little bit crazier, going into my 20s, when it was legal, for me to get alcohol, when I'm able to go out to these clubs, bars, shit like that. Yeah, it kind of got turned up to the max. So Yep, life. I don't know. I could obviously keep going, but I feel like this was a decent introduction and some good backstory, you know. So let's just say life keeps going, you know. You think you're in the clear, and you just never know what. You just never know. You just never knew what is gonna happen, bro. So, with that said, like I said, I'm probably gonna end the video here. The quick introduction. I'll get into my 20s, get into my early 30s, get into my, everything, like I said, because life happens, and I'm sure people have had a worse life than me, and I try to what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I try to I just try not to look at my life through a singular lens, you know what I mean? Like, shit has happened, but also shit could be so much worse. I'm appreciative for what I have now, but also still not happy with where I'm at. And like I said, it's through all the shit I've gone through, the trials and tribulations, yeah. Let me just say too, well, I'll save it for another video, but yeah, women, man, can make or fucking break you. Make or break. Never invest so much of your time or money into someone who's not going to reciprocate those efforts. And in the moment, it is tough to see or think towards the future when you're living in the moment. But just know that life can always get better. It can also get worse, you know what I mean? Especially if you just like give up, you know. Do not give up out there, people. What else? But yeah, like I said, I feel like this is a pretty good introduction. I don't know if anybody sees this, watches it, is interested. Is what it is. People are or are not. But I feel like I've been wanting to talk about my life for a minute, you know. I never, in through all this, you know, I've never seen a therapist, so it's that self-work, it's that self-motivation, and, you know, like, just working to be a better me, just working to be the best possible version of myself I can be. So I would encourage those out there who are going through difficult times to do the same, and hopefully you can find some solace. Too many people out here worried about, the last thing on your mind should be a relationship, to be honest. Like, too many people are worried about finding love and find yourself. Find yourself, and let everything else fall into place. So, with that said, yep, I'm out.